Good morning. I don't think it's on. It's on? Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone. Are we also ready to go live? I don't see the evening. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this very special regional forum on the multiplier effect, women shaping the future of Caribbean tourism. I'd like to acknowledge that this event is being hosted by the United Nations Population Fund Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean in partnership with the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, and with key stakeholders who are committed to advancing gender, equality, and women's rights in the tourism sector. I'm absolutely delighted to be your host of ceremonies for today's important gathering. Whether you're joining us here in person at the beautiful O2 Beach Hotel, Club and Spa in Christchurch, Barbados, or participating virtually through our online platform, we're thrilled to have you here with us. Before we proceed with our formal program, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to the distinguished guests who honor us with their presence today. Your participation underscores the importance of this forum and the commitment of our regional and international partners to advancing women's empowerment in Caribbean tourism. We are particularly honored to welcome the Honorable Ian Gooding-Edghill, the Minister of Tourism and International Transport of Barbados, whose presence demonstrates the Government of Barbados's unwavering commitment to gender equality and women's empowerment in the tourism sector. We are privileged also to welcome distinguished representatives from international organizations whose work directly supports the objectives of today's forum, including representatives from UN Women, the International Labour Organization, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, and other partner agencies whose commitment to gender equality drives meaningful change in our region. We acknowledge the presence of leaders from regional institutions who champion Caribbean integration and development, and we welcome distinguished leaders from the private sector and civil society whose innovative work and advocacy create the foundation for positive change. We also extend a warm welcome to all other distinguished guests, including representatives from government ministries, diplomatic missions, international organizations, regional institutions, private sector, civil society. Your presence enriches our discussion and enriches our collective commitment to advancing women in Caribbean tourism. To our distinguished virtual participants joining us online from across the Caribbean region and beyond, your digital presence demonstrates the power of technology to unite us in a common purpose, regardless of geographic boundaries. We express our particular gratitude to all the persons whose gracious hospitality in hosting this important regional forum. Barbados's leadership in tourism innovation and commitment to gender equality makes this an ideal venue for our discussion. Today marks a milestone in our collective journey towards creating a more inclusive, empowering, and safe workplace for women in the Caribbean tourism industry. Over the next 2 hours, we'll be exploring how women are not just participating in, but actively shaping the future of our Caribbean tourism, how their well-being and empowerment creates a multiplier effect that benefits business, communities, and travelers alike. This forum brings together tourism leaders, policymakers, advocates, and change makers from across the region and beyond. We'll be sharing groundbreaking research and findings, hearing from industry pioneers, and launching new resources that will help to transform workplaces in our region. Your collective presence today, whether in person or virtually, demonstrates our regional and international commitment to ensuring that women can shape the future of Caribbean tourism. Thank you for your leadership, your partnership, and your dedication to this vital cause. Let's begin with opening remarks. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Jenny Karlsen, the Deputy Director of the UNFPA Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean. Jenny brings extensive experience in advancing gender equality and women's health rights, and sexual reproductive health and rights in the public and private sector across the Caribbean region. Under her leadership, the UNFPA has made significant strides in addressing gender-based violence in the workplace, including successful development and adoption of GBV workplace policy by several companies across the Caribbean in 2023. Jenny's work focuses on creating strategic partnerships with the private sector to develop data-driven solutions that enhance women's health and well-being in the workplace. Her vision for today's forum is to provide private sector partners with the tools, knowledge needed to create concrete action for women in the workplace. Please join me in welcoming Jenny Karlsen.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Very good. The Honourable Ian Gooding-Edghill, Minister of Tourism and International Transport, senior government officials, including from Antigua and Barbuda, esteemed co-hosts from the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, representatives of Ocean Hotels, fellow UN colleagues and development partners, ladies and gentlemen, in person and online. It is truly a pleasure to welcome you to this regional forum, the Multiplier Effect, Women Shaping the Future of Caribbean Tourism. Thank you for joining us here at the stunning O2 Beach Club and Spa, our generous hosts of today, and to all of you who are participating online. In September 2023, UNFPA joined forces with several strategic partners, including representatives of the government of Barbados and the Caribbean Employers Confederation, to launch the adoption of the GBV workplace policy by the Caribbean Employers Confederation and its members. Online tools and trainings were developed and made available for the private sector. And this milestone was made possible thanks to the EU Spotlight initiative to end gender-based violence and in collaboration with several UN agencies, including between UNFPA and ILO. At that time, several companies committed to implement GBV, gender-based violence workplace policy in their respective organizations. And as we will hear later, our generous host of today, O2 Beach Club and Spa, was one of those companies making this commitment. And today, we're very grateful to be here with all of you to build on these gains made, and especially to join forces with the tourism sector and the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association in hosting this regional forum. UNFPA is deeply committed to working with our partners within the UN system and outside to promote gender equality and empowering and protecting all women and girls and youth in the Caribbean, as we believe these are essential prerequisites to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. As the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, we are champions of health and well-being of women and girls in the Caribbean. Alongside our partners, we're actively working towards ending gender-based violence and empowering women and young people. We would like to see a Caribbean where every woman and girl can live free of fear and intimidation, leaving no one behind. Yet we know that 1 in 3 women in the Caribbean have been subjected to either physical and/or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime. And adolescent girls, our future leaders, future employees, entrepreneurs, are looking on. And this is unacceptable. And it's not only a social crisis, but an economic one too. And the costs are enormous. If you look at global data, it shows us that violence against women can cost up to 5% of GDP. And why is this so important for the tourism sector in the Caribbean? Because women are this sector. As I'm learning, we have a lot of women leaders in this sector, CEOs that are crafting strategy, chefs defining culinary excellence, and housekeepers ensuring flawless guest experiences. Unfortunately, the issues faced by women within their homes and communities often find their way into our workplaces. Our data, that you will hear more of today, reveal a stark gap. While women drive tourism's success, too many women continue to confront harassment, wage disparities, or barriers to advancement. At the same time, gender equality is an issue from a traveler's perspective. Our data, that you will hear also about today, shows that 70% of female US visitors say that they'll choose a destination committed to gender equality. It isn't just a fundamental human rights issue, it's an economic imperative that we act. When women thrive, business thrive. At UNFPA, we invest in convening strategic partners as today because we believe in the strategic and intentional partnership to achieve transformative goals for women and girls in the Caribbean. At the same time, we know very well, as you also know, that governments play a crucial role to take solutions to scale. And that's why we applaud pioneers such as the government of Barbados and Antigua and Barbuda that has made already a commitment to the ILO C-120 Convention by leading in the Caribbean and ratifying this convention. They are champions for a common framework for action for addressing violence and harassment in the workplace, including gender-based violence. And we hope that more countries in the Caribbean will follow. Allow me also to express our gratitude to the Caribbean Tourism Organization that is here today and the Inter-American Development Bank for being partners in helping us develop the two surveys that you will hear more about today. We look forward to more such co-created designs to develop data and intentional collaboration. Today, we'll spotlight pioneers transforming data and insights into impact, from hotels adopting GBV prevention protocols to governments expanding childcare for tourism workers. When women succeed, everyone benefits. Let's work together to amplify impact by making Caribbean tourism a beacon of safety, equity, and opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, for those inspiring opening remarks and for setting the stage for today's important discussions. Next, I'm delighted to introduce Patricia Affonso-Dass, the CEO of Ocean Hotels, our gracious host venue for today's event. Patricia, born in Dominica and raised across the Caribbean, is a seasoned hospitality professional with over 30 years of industry experience. A graduate of the Florida International University, she's held leadership roles in Guyana and Barbados, and currently serves as the CEO of Ocean Hotels, a group of boutique properties here in Barbados. Under her leadership, Ocean Hotels has become a premier brand known for excellence in service and training. Former president of both the BHTA and CHTA, Patricia is the 2024 CHTA Hotelier of the Year, recognized for her outstanding industry contributions. Patricia's perspective as a Caribbean tourism leader who is actively implementing positive change in her own organization will provide valuable insights into how the principles we're discussing today can be put into practice. Please welcome Patricia Affonso-Dass.
And contributing between 30 to 70% of the region's GDP when direct and indirect contributions are considered. Yet to truly unlock our sector's full potential, we must recognize that women are essential to its growth and sustainability. Throughout my career, both as a leader in hospitality industry and as a champion of people development and gender equality, I have observed firsthand the transformative power of empowering women. At Ocean Hotels, we have seen how investing in our people, and particularly women's development, through leadership training, mentorship, and inclusive workplace cultures, not only benefits our employees, but also elevates the entire hospitality experience for our guests. Empowering women and the wider teams in our organization has led to innovative approaches to guest service, more dynamic teams, and higher staff retention. Women at Ocean Hotels have taken on roles from management to entrepreneurial initiatives, proving that when given the opportunity, they thrive, and so does our business. In my career, I have also personally experienced how valuable having a sponsor and a champion can be. Sponsorship is about advocacy, having someone who believes in your potential, who sees your capability and capacity, and who uses their position of influence to put your name forward and crack the door open, pushing you to become the best version of yourself. I strongly feel now as a leader that it is both the leader's role and responsibility to be a sponsor and an advocate for their team members, particularly women and those more vulnerable. But it is more than just a matter of individual success stories. When women are supported and included, entire communities prosper. Women-owned businesses flourish, local employment increases, and sustainable tourism coexists with cultural preservation. This creates a ripple effect, strengthening economies, fostering social equality, and reinforcing the island's unique identities. However, if we are truly committed to women's empowerment, we must also be committed to their protection. The hospitality and tourism industry must be a space where women feel safe, respected, and valued. Unfortunately, gender-based violence and harassment still exists in some of our workplaces, and it is wholly unacceptable. Leadership must take a firm stance, starting at the top. We must adopt and enforce zero-tolerance policies against gender-based violence, not just in principle, but in practice. This includes clear reporting structures, training for all levels of staff, and holding perpetrators accountable. It also means creating cultures where everyone, especially women, can speak up without fear. Giving team members a voice and creating a space where they can feel heard and valued is hugely empowering. And it's not just the right thing to do, it's also good for business. Management has the power and the responsibility to shape these workplace cultures. When leaders prioritize safety, respect, and equality, those values cascade through every department and every interaction. Our actions must reflect our commitment, because a safe workplace is a foundation upon which empowerment can truly flourish. We must also acknowledge the challenges remaining: persistent gender biases, limited access to leadership positions, and gaps in skill development. These barriers require deliberate action. It is imperative that industry stakeholders, policymakers, and educational institutions work collaboratively to foster environments where women can lead, innovate, and succeed. From where I stand, I see immense opportunity. We can leverage our collective influence to cultivate inclusive workspace cultures that benefit everyone: employees, businesses, and the tourism ecosystem at large. Initiatives like mentorship programs, youth leader programs, targeted training, and policies that promote gender equality are essential steps forward. In closing, I want to emphasize that women's empowerment in the Caribbean tourism is not just a moral choice, it's a smart strategic decision. An inclusive industry is a resilient industry, as Jenny said earlier, and an industry that harnesses the full potential of its human capital will thrive in the years to come. Let us commit ourselves to continuous progress, to breaking down barriers, and to ensuring that the Caribbean remains a beacon of hospitality, innovation, and equality. Together, we can shape a future where every woman can lead, inspire, and succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia, for your empowering words and providing such a beautiful venue for today's gathering. I'm now honored to introduce the Honorable Ian Gooding-Edghill, the Minister of Tourism and International Transport of Barbados. Minister Gooding-Edghill brings the important perspective of government leadership in tourism development and policy. The government of Barbados has been a strong advocate for gender equality and women's rights, and their support of initiatives like today's forum demonstrates the commitment to creating an environment where women can thrive in all sectors of the economy, particularly in tourism, which is so vital to our region's prosperity. His presence today underscores the government's recognition that women's empowerment in tourism is not just a social imperative, but an economic necessity for sustainable development in the Caribbean. Please join me welcome the Honorable Ian Gooding-Edghill, Minister of Tourism and International Transport.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And welcome to those who have not visited Barbados. Welcome to Barbados. And I hope that as Minister of Tourism, I can encourage you to return to Barbados. Good morning again. Deputy Director and the Officer in charge of the United Nations Population Fund Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean, Jenny Karlsen, the Chief Executive Officer of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, the Executive Director of Compete Caribbean, the country representative for the Inter-American Development Bank in Barbados, Mrs. Karnina Cockburn, Executive Director of the Caribbean UN Global Compact, Chairman, Presidents, Chief Executive Officers of Hotel and Tourism Associations and other non-governmental organizations, Permanent Secretaries, Senior Government Officials, staff of the Caribbean Tourism Organization Secretariat, representatives of O2 Beach Hotel and Spa, distinguished development partners, UN colleagues, presenters, online participants. Welcome all. It gives me pleasure, indeed, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to Barbados and obviously to participate in this pivotal forum, the Multiplier Effect, Women Shaping the Future of Caribbean Tourism. I extend a warm welcome to our partners at the United Nations Population Fund, tourism and development stakeholders, industry leaders, and the many Caribbean women whose voices and leadership continue to drive innovation and inclusivity, and to our leaders of tomorrow. Today, we gather not just as stakeholders in tourism, but as purposeful architects of a more inclusive and thriving Caribbean, where women's leadership, safety, and well-being are rightly upheld as the cornerstones of our industry's resilience and long-term success. Tourism is the lifeblood of our region. It fuels economies, creates jobs, and shapes how the world sees the Caribbean. The World Travel and Tourism Council has estimated that the tourism sector contributed an average of 11% to the Caribbean's GDP in 2023 and supported over 2.75 million jobs, accounting for 15% of total employment in the Caribbean. Tourism provides employment for youth and for women, with as much as 70% of its workforce being women. Despite providing livelihoods for some of the most vulnerable members of communities, its true potential can be unlocked, and when every worker, especially women, who comprise more than half of the workforce, can thrive in environments that are safe, inclusive, and empowering. The data we will hear today from the United Nations Population Fund's Pulse and Progress Survey and the U.S. Market Sentiment Survey underscores a critical truth. Gender equality is not just a moral imperative, it is a competitive advantage. These surveys reveal the expectations of our visitors and the realities of our workers. They point to the opportunities before us to reimagine our workplaces as spaces where women feel safe, valued, and empowered. When workplaces are free from gender-based violence, productivity soars. As Minister of Tourism, I am proud to share that Barbados has taken the bold steps to embed gender equality into our tourism strategy, from adopting the gender-based violence workplace policy across our hotel sector to partnering with United Nations Population Fund and the Caribbean Employers Confederation. We are translating commitments into action. The brand elements of the Barbados tourism industry are friendliness, cleanliness, safety, and security. We recognize that in a service-oriented sector, such as tourism, we are selling an experience, the comfort of exceptional service, and of course, which is critical in providing the base for which exceptional service must be delivered. If our service providers are not operating in a safe environment or from a place of safety, then they cannot provide that service. We must also remember that this safe place extends beyond the physical premises of the workplace to the transit to and from work. The adage that a rising tide lifts all boats is very relevant in terms of the provision of opportunities for women to earn their livelihoods in a safe working environment. This redounds not just for women as workers, but for their families and the society as a whole, visitors and locals alike. From Barbados's perspective, it is estimated that the accommodation and food service subsector, which approximates to the hospitality sector, employs just under 16,000 persons during the first quarter of 2024, with 9,500 or 60% being female. Based on data provided by the Barbados Statistical Service, accommodation and food service employs the second most amount of females, second only to the wholesale and retail sectors. Many women in the industry are family providers, as well as employees who have managed to adapt and to multitask, working both at home and in the sector. Skills such as budgeting, food preparation, management, interpersonal, and communication skills are transferred from the home to the workplace and vice versa. The empowerment gained as a result of the jobs can contribute to the personal growth and development of women, who may become stalwarts in their communities. It is therefore no surprise that many women who have worked in the tourism sector have become entrepreneurs. Indeed, platforms such as the Airbnb has lowered the barriers to entry for women to become micro-entrepreneurs by renting out rooms, apartments, or vacation homes, often with little upfront capital. Women can and has monetized existing assets to enter into the accommodation sector, providing service to the tourism sector without the need for a formal business registration or significant investment. Moreover, embracing these platforms has provided a flexible source of income, helping women to supplement earnings from traditional employment or manage during economic downturns, thereby providing a level of financial autonomy. Notwithstanding the above, these platforms have further lowered the barriers in assisting women to connect to international visitors, removing geographic and market access barriers often faced by small local businesses. Indeed, operating on these platforms have allowed women to build digital literacy and online marketing skills, enhancing their ability to engage in other forms of e-commerce or tourism promotion. Indeed, Airbnb has reported that women hosts are high-rated, with over 80% five-star reviews indicating strong service quality and guest satisfaction. A 2020 Airbnb report celebrated the strong economic impact of women hosts worldwide, underscoring several key benefits. Women hosts earn nearly $15 billion globally in just 1 year by sharing their homes and passions. Female hosts make up over 50% of Airbnb's host community, and in some regions, even more, 64% in New Zealand and 61% in Australia. Among women who consider hosting as their primary income source, 54% say their income has helped them grow a business, and 51% describe it as a lifeline that has helped them stay in their homes. With respect to the government of Barbados, its policies has tended to be gender neutral. Government has provided support for entrepreneurs, both financial and technical, through agencies such as the Enterprise Growth Fund and the Barbados Agency for Micro Enterprise Development, trading as Fund Access, and the Barbados Trust Fund. Women has equal opportunity to access credit through these financial institutions. To speak specifically towards about the Barbados Trust Fund, this facility was established in 2018 to create the conditions for empowerment and the creation of generational wealth through fostering sustainable micro-enterprise development by providing access to credit, enterprise training, business support, and other professional developmental services. Since its establishment, it has disbursed loans with a total value of over Barbados $25 million, with 54% of the applicants being female, receiving 54.3% of the funds disbursed. The fund also provided training for approximately 3,300 persons, 57% of whom were female. The government of Barbados implemented the BEST program, which translates to the Barbados Employment and Sustainable Transformation Program, in October of 2022, an initiative to re-engage and upskill tourism workers, helping to transform and strengthen the industry in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, which impacted the sector socially and economically. Under the BEST program, the National Transformation Initiative has assisted tourism companies directly and indirectly with preparing tourism-specific training plans for the upskilling of their workers and the creation of more financially viable and resilient companies. Additionally, the National Transformation Initiative, through its landmark partnership with Coursera, the world's leading online learning provider, has established a dedicated tourism academy, providing free access to hundreds of training areas with a specific focus on direct and indirect tourism skills. These programs, while not specifically targeting women, do provide economic opportunities for women either directly or by supporting their training, employment, and re-employment. The recently introduced Tourism Linkages program here in Barbados, which seeks to integrate Barbados's tourism activity with domestic manufacturing and agriculture sectors by increasing local sourcing, improving supply chain efficiency, and ensuring that growth in tourism directly benefits and stimulates expansion in these sectors, also supports by extension the activities of women entrepreneurs. Historically, due to the seasonal nature of tourism, job stability has been identified as a challenge for those employed in the industry. The Barbados government has been engaging with tourism partners to fill the troughs or traditional low periods with sporting and cultural events and activities, maintaining economic activity in the sector and supporting job retention. Generally, efforts by government to increase visitor numbers and expenditure on the island have the ultimate objective of improving the livelihoods of all Barbadians. In Barbados, as far back as the 18th century, and those of you who know Rachel Pringle, women have been leaders in the tourism industry. We have female leadership of tourism, which continues today at a pace. In fact, in my own ministry, we have a female permanent secretary, and within the leadership of the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., we have a female chief executive officer and a female chief operations officer leading that organization. In addition to that, we have Secretary General of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, who's also female and who obviously continues to do an outstanding job. Indeed, we also have a number of persons and females who serve in critical roles, not only as chief executive officers, but also in the hotel sector. And in Barbados, where we have a number of female general managers, and I know some who are in attendance today. I will continue to urge all of you to continue to that transformational path to ensure that we have more female general managers within the sector and to ensure that hospitality continues to lead the path for the Caribbean region. Indeed, we are blessed, and indeed we have in our presence, as she's hosting us here today, the Group CEO of the Oceans Hotel Group, Ms. Patricia Affonso-Dass, who in her own right was a former chairman of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, and of course, the winner of that prize and coveted 2024 Caribbean Hotelier of the Year in award. Please give her a round of applause. There are also many other women who, too numerous to mention, who continue to help this sector and who will continue to ensure that we build resilience within the tourism sector. As we delve into today's discussion, I urge you all to, one, reflect on the role of women in making Caribbean tourism the success it has been. Acknowledge the contribution made by women, not just in hotels, but in other tourism-related establishments, facilities, and services, also in other sectors which support the tourism and hospitality industry, such as banking, entertainment, and agriculture. Thirdly, recognize that women have been role models, teachers, and mentors for many of the successful males in the tourism sector, contributing to its sustainability, and understand that making a safe environment for women means a safe environment for all. In recent years, the sector has started to cater to females, either traveling alone or in female-only groups. As a result, safety and security has become critical to the decision to travel to a particular destination. The Caribbean's future as a premier tourism destination hinges on our ability to champion gender equality. Let us leave here today not just inspired, but equipped and accountable to drive this change. To our partners at United Nations Population Fund and all other regional stakeholders, including the Inter-American Development Bank, thank you for your leadership, thank you for your partnership, and thank you for your ongoing support in championing and shaping women within our tourism sector, and of course, building resilience and the vision that will continue to light paths forward. Together, let us applaud your success thus far and walk together in a tourism industry that provides equality to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so very much to all our opening speakers. I just want to ask just 2 minutes, quick intervention. We'd just like to take a group photo, understanding that a few key persons might need to leave. So we'll ask the minister to rejoin us here to take a photo. Also asking Dejane, Tenisha, Karina, Lisa, CDB, Abibesh, Patricia, Angela from UN Women, Ken Roy, and Jenny. I need it.
I'm good, and you? Good. You want me to move this?
Thank you so much for that. Now we're moving on to one of the most anticipated parts of our program, the reveal of groundbreaking research that will help us to understand both the experiences of women working in Caribbean tourism and the perceptions of travelers who visit our destinations. This research represents months of careful study and analysis, and the findings will provide us with data-driven insights we need to make informed decisions about how to improve women's experiences in the workplaces. I'm pleased to introduce Kim Farren, the Gender and Data Management Analyst for the UNFPA, who will be presenting highlights from the Caribbean Tourism Workforce Survey titled, What Our Women Are Seeing. Kim has been instrumental in developing and analyzing the UNFPA's gender-focused research initiatives across the Caribbean. Her expertise in data management and gender analysis ensures that the voices and experiences of women are accurately captured and meaningfully interpreted. The survey she will be presenting today captures the voices and experiences of women working throughout the Caribbean tourism industry. This research provides us with unprecedented insights into what women are saying about their workplace experiences, their priorities, and the unique challenges they face. These findings will help us understand not just where we are today, but where we need to go to create truly empowering and inclusive workplaces for women in tourism. Please welcome Kim Farren.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Maybe I'll pull it a bit closer. It's fine. Distinguished guests, all protocols observed. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kim Farren, Gender and Data Management Analyst at the UNFPA Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Through the Pulse on Progress survey, we set out to understand the experiences and priorities of women working in the hotel and tourism sector across the Caribbean. We're grateful to the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, the Caribbean Tourism Organization, and Compete Caribbean for their support in disseminating this survey across the region. The presentation will share key findings from the survey grounded in the lived realities of women in the sector. Oh, I need my clicker. So, today I'll take you through 5 key areas that emerged from the survey. First of all, workplace safety and gender-based violence, so how safe women felt in their workplaces and their knowledge of any harmful behaviours that may be occurring. Policies and reporting, whether formal mechanisms are in place and if they're working. Women's health and well-being, including access to sexual and reproductive health services or any other health support at work. Career growth and support, so their opinions about opportunities for advancement within their organisations. Women's voices will get to hear in their own words what they had to say to really bring this data to life. And then we'll outline next steps that can be taken forward to access the results and use them to enhance your workplace culture. It's important to note that these results may be somewhat influenced by the composition of survey respondents. So over 70% identified as being in senior or middle management roles. So that means we're really starting with insights from women decision makers, people who have the influence in the organization to advocate for change. This also means that they may not fully respect the experience of frontline or entry-level workers who often face different challenges and may have fewer resources available to them. So with that in mind, let's look first at what women had to say about safety and GBV in the workplace. 64% of women reported feeling very safe in their workplace. 25% said they felt somewhat safe, 8% had neutral feelings on safety, and 3% said they felt somewhat unsafe. So while the majority of respondents feel secure in their work environments, there's still a proportion of women, more than 1 in 10, not fully confident in their sense of safety. On the issue of gender-based violence and harassment, 29% of women had known or heard of incidents occurring between employees and guests. When asked about GBV between employees, 23% said it happens at least a few times a year, 39% said about once a year, and 38% said they were not aware of it happening at all. The varied responses reflect differences in environments and diversity of experiences across this region, Many respondents, as mentioned, were in senior or middle management, so the findings will only reflect what has come to their attention. Frontline environments can present different realities that may not be fully captured here. One more, and then the types of incidents occurring. So the most commonly reported was verbal harassment, and harmful behaviors don't always have to be physical to impact someone's sense of well-being. Even verbal comments can contribute to a culture of fear or disrespect. These insights indicate a clear opportunity for us to build environments where women not only feel physically safe, but where potential risks are mitigated and harmful behaviors are addressed appropriately. Now turning to policies and reporting mechanisms, 50% of respondents said that their workplace had actively implemented policies or programs to address GBV or harassment. However, 18% said policies were existing, but they weren't actively implemented. 20% said no policies or programs exist at all, and a further 12% were not sure if policies were in place. So this shows that there is progress, but the existence, implementation, and visibility of these policies remains inconsistent across the region. We looked at how women feel about reporting issues related to GBV and sexual and reproductive health at work. 22% of respondents said they would feel somewhat or very uncomfortable reporting these types of concerns. Analysis also showed that those who feel most uncomfortable also perceive GBV or harassment between employees as happening more frequently. So that reflects that a negative experience of GBV or harassment will foster a general lack of trust in management and reporting procedures. Finally, we saw signs of underreporting. 21% of women who had heard of an incident involving a guest and an employee said that it was not reported. The results indicate that workplaces have foundations in place, but there's a lot of work to do to build robust systems that instill employee confidence in safety mechanisms. Now let's look at what they had to say about women's health and well-being support in the workplace. Starting with menstrual health, 73% of women reported that they don't have access to affordable and reliable menstrual products at work. In addition, 32% said they don't have access to a private and hygienic space to manage their menstrual health. This result was quite surprising. It may indicate a lack of designated bathrooms or that facilities aren't meeting hygiene standards. When it comes to sexual and reproductive health services, 54% said they did have access to these services, 34% said that they did not, and 12% were unsure. So some support does exist, but there's considerable scope for enhancement across the sector in ensuring that women have fundamental healthcare services. Looking at mental health, 37% of women reported having no access to support services related to mental health and well-being. There was a silver lining. 42% said that they do have access to counselling or mental health professionals. So the findings suggest that while services typically covered through employee health insurance are commonly available, more workplace-specific provisions such as private facilities or access to mental health, which require direct employee investment, are not consistently in place. Now returning to career growth and support. When asked about advancement opportunities, 49% respondents said that their career growth within the organization felt limited, while only 33% saw clear pathways for advancement. Another 18% said they saw no opportunities for advancement at all. We took a closer look at that data and found that optimism about career progression actually tended to decline as years of experience increased. So mid-career and veteran staff across the board were feeling stalled or overlooked. We also asked women what skills they were most interested in developing. The top priority was leadership and management training, with 62% of women expressing an interest in this. Language and communication skills and sustainable tourism practices were the top priority areas in terms of tourism-specific training, with 39% and 38% interested respectively. 38% of respondents said that their employer provided training or skills development within the past year. Even more, 46% have pursued this type of training independently. Among women who didn't receive any form of training in the past year, 42% felt they had clear pathways for advancement. That's more than double the rate of those who had not received training, only 19% of whom saw clear pathways for advancement. So It's clear that investing in training and development for women strengthens motivation and optimism about their long-term prospects within the organization. Now we're going to hear women's voices. When we asked women across the region what they needed to feel supported, safe, and seen in their workplace, their messages were clear. On workplace safety, we need a safe environment free from harassment and fear. This came through repeatedly as women expressed a desire not just for policies, but for a visible culture of safety and respect. On workplace policies, they made it clear that it's not just about having policies, but about making staff aware of the standards expected from them and the reporting mechanisms that are available to them. On women's health and well-being, more understanding and flexibility around women's health issues would create a more supportive environment. Women specifically referred to menstrual health, pregnancy, and menopause, calling for more empathy and practical support from their employers. On career growth, it was clear from their answers in the open-ended questions that support, be it healthcare, family support, or training, should be accessible to women across all stages of their careers to ensure an equitable environment where every employee can thrive. To wrap up, here are 3 simple ways you can take action based on what you've heard today. The full survey results will be available on UNFPA's Knowledge Hub. We encourage you to access those and take a closer look at the data. You'll also be able to download a survey template, and this will assist you in gaining insights on the needs and priorities of women working at all levels of your organization. You can connect with UNFPA to explore how we can support your organization with technical guidance, tools, and resources, and advice that's tailored to your own organization. Thank you for your time and commitment to advancing women's well-being in the tourism sector.
Thank you, Kim, for those eye-opening insights into the experiences of women in our tourism workforce. The data you shared provides a crucial foundation for the work that we're doing. Now I'd like to introduce the consultancy team from Trove Tourism Development Advisors, who will be presenting findings from the U.S. Market Sentiment Survey on U.S. female travelers' sentiments in 2025, Caribbean Destination Perceptions and Influences. Leading this presentation is Danny Kapoor, along with his colleagues Thais Lima and Charlotte Slater. This team brings extensive expertise in tourism market research and analysis, with a particular focus on understanding traveler behavior and destination perceptions. The study they'll be presenting today examines the perceptions of U.S. travelers regarding gender-based violence and women's health rights in the Caribbean tourism workplaces, and how these perceptions influence their travel decisions. This research is particularly significant because the United States remains the primary source market for international tourist arrivals to the Caribbean region. Understanding how potential visitors perceive our commitment to women's well-being and safety can help us better position our destinations and businesses in the competitive global tourism market. Their findings will help us understand the connection between workplace conditions for women and destination reputation, a crucial link in demonstrating the business case for the changes that we're advocating. Please join me in welcoming the team from Trove Tourism Development Advisors.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Barbados. Thank you very much for having me. All right, I'm gonna wait till the slides come up. There you go. Okay, so I'm delighted to be here today to talk about the study that we were able to do with UNFPA. And I'm delighted to be here with my team, Charlotte and Thais, who are going to really take the reins in providing insights for destinations and accommodation providers. So the goal of the study is to understand what influences U.S. women's travel decision-making, particularly in choosing Caribbean destinations. Next slide. So our methodology was a survey that we ran from June 19th to June 24th. All respondents were US-based women aged 18 and over. All are frequent international travelers. Now, we broke the sample into 2. Half of the sample had traveled to one of 7 target Caribbean destinations in the last 3 years. So Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Belize, TCI, and Antigua and Barbuda. And then the other 300 had not been to those 7 countries, but were interested and had planned to travel to the Caribbean within the next 3 years. Next slide. The demographic profile, about 70% of the respondents were aged 25 to 54, with a strong concentration in the 35 to 44 group. And you'll see some other insights around our demographic. We had a really great mix of race, income, family structure, and education to make sure we had representative quotas across the group. Next slide. So I'm going to touch on the high-level key findings and then pass it over to Charlotte and Thais for more detailed insights. First key finding is that safety drives travel decisions. Safety is the top factor women consider when choosing a destination or hotel, and nearly 70% view gender-based violence in the Caribbean as a moderate to serious concern. Second key finding is that women want systems to report harassment. 79% say it's very or extremely important for hotels to have visible systems for reporting. The third is that fear of harassment was one of 3 most important barriers to travel to the Caribbean in our research. Fourth is that women-friendly accommodations are in demand. So women-friendly accommodations are accommodations with policies for anti-harassment, amenities tailored to women's needs, and enhanced security measures for women. Next is that positive peer reviews matter. So we actually found that reviews from women was the #1 form of content that drove decision-making amongst the sample. Next slide. In addition, we found some other really interesting behaviors. There's a strong willingness to pay. About 66% are willing to pay more for accommodations with certifications for ethically and socially responsible practices. Authentic cultural engagement grows in value after visiting. So women who had already visited the Caribbean destination, they valued cultural engagement far more than those planning to go, which means once they were there, they saw the culture and were even more excited to engage. In terms of safety, 50% rated the region moderately safe, and just 10% said extremely safe. So there is opportunity there in terms of safety perception and improvement to be made. Next is that visible gender equality signage builds trust. So hotels that have signage around policies promoting gender equality and equal opportunities would increase the trust that women travelers have in a hotel property. And lastly, an opportunity area includes childcare and family-friendly options across the Caribbean. So these are high-level key findings, and I'm going to pass it over to Charlotte first, my wonderful colleague, who will give you insights for destinations. Charlotte, over to you.
Thank you so much, Danny. So yes, let's dive into some more insights for destinations. These insights help explain some of the push and pull forces that shape demand before a traveler ever clicks book. Next slide, please. Thank you. So when we look at which sources or types of content most influence the research and decision-making of these travelers, we see that written reviews from other women sit at the very top of the influence ladder at 19.7%, ahead of destination websites at 18.6%. Online travel platforms and community forums like Reddit also hold significant influence. This tells us credibility comes from lived experience backed by trusted sources. The destination should continue to elevate authentic female voices because travelers are looking for that peer reassurance. Next slide, please. Now, taking a look at general perception and intent, why do some women hesitate? Cost and climate still lead with 18.9%, citing airfare or accommodation prices, and 15.5% worrying about hurricanes and flooding. Behind those are gendered safety fears. 11.9% fear harassment, 10.5% cite gender-based violence. In short, affordability, climate resilience, and transparent safety measures are critical to unlocking greater demand for Caribbean travel. Next slide, please. Now let's take a closer look at the topic of safety and comfort. Nearly 70% of respondents view gender-based violence in the Caribbean as at least a moderate issue, with 38.3% saying it's moderately prevalent and 30% describing it as a serious or very serious concern. It is worth noting what that also means, that 1/3 already see the region as largely safe, a baseline that can definitely be grown. Next slide, please. Additionally, nearly half of travelers, 47.4%, are aware of or know about gender-based violence reports in the Caribbean. This near even split underscores how widespread awareness of such incidents is among travelers, even if not all have directly experienced them. Developments like clear crisis protocols and bystander training can help destinations turn concern into commitment, and in turn informed travelers into enthusiastic ambassadors for the region. Next slide, please. When we break down incidents by type, travelers are mostly aware about verbal harassment at 19.1%, followed by sexual assault at 17.6%, and physical violence at 15.7%. All in all, this tells us that even indirect exposure, such as stories from a friend or a headline that has been read, carries real weight. Next slide, please. Now, on the topic of ethical concerns, a striking 77.9% rate fair labor practices, equal pay, and gender equality as very or extremely important when picking where to go. So by showcasing certified ethical initiatives, destinations can foster deeper trust with women travelers. So those are just some of our insights for destinations. Now I'll hand it over to my wonderful colleague Thais for some key findings for the private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to share key insights for the private sector, focusing on matters most to women travelers and how businesses can respond to these needs and expectations. Next slide, please. So let's begin with the basics here. What women look for when choosing a place to stay. Room quality, safety measures, and cleanliness are the top 3 priorities here. This shows that comfort and safety are not optional. They are central to women's travel decisions. Next slide, please. Comfort isn't just about the room. It's also about how guests are treated. Women travelers value strong safety protocols, empathetic staff, and culturally respectful experiences, each scoring here around 16%. Privacy and transparent booking are also ranked highly. So the full experience here from booking to checkout needs to be built on trust and a sense of being genuinely cared for. Knowing that hotel staff are trained to handle harassment and violence makes a big difference. 65% of women say they're more likely to stay in a hotel where the staff are trained to respond. This kind of training helps build real confidence in the hospitality experience. And also, travelers don't just want prevention, they want support if something happens. Nearly 80% said it's very or extremely important for hotels to have clear systems to report harassment and violence or violence. When these systems are in place, it builds trust and reassures guests that their safety is taken seriously. Given everything that we shared so far, it's no surprise that there's high demand for women-focused lodging. Over 70% of respondents said they are quite or very interested in staying at women's friendly accommodations in the Caribbean. As you can see, there's a clear market opportunity for businesses offering safe, inclusive, and supportive spaces. And importantly, travelers are ready to support their values through spending. 65% said that they're willing to pay more for accommodations that follow certified ethical and socially responsible practices. This matches with their strong interest in fair labor, responsible business, and doing the right thing while traveling. So ethical operations don't just feel good, they make business sense too. I think that's it on my end. Thank you all so much. And Danny will explain now how you can assess the full report.
Sure. Thank you, team. So, this really displayed how much opportunity there is for accommodations across the Caribbean as well as destinations to prepare in terms of policy, in terms of the overall amenities provided for these types of women travelers. So, the full report will be available on the UNFPA Knowledge Hub. But we're truly grateful and appreciative of your time. And thank you very much.
Thank you to our research teams for those compelling insights into both workforce experiences and traveler perceptions. The connection you've drawn between workplace conditions and destination competitiveness enforces the business case for the initiatives that we're discussing today. The research we've just heard provides us with a clear picture of both the current state of women's experiences in Caribbean tourism and the market implications of our efforts to improve these experiences. Now we're going to hear from one of the most respected voices in the Caribbean tourism about how we can turn these insights into concrete action. It's my great honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Vanessa Ledesma, the CEO of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. Vanessa is the CEO of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association and the first woman and Spanish-speaking leader to hold this position. With over 25 years at the association, she has been instrumental in strengthening its resilience and relevance. Widely respected for her expertise in association management and leadership, Vanessa champions regional collaboration with purposeful engagement to advance Caribbean tourism. Her keynote address today, Turning Insights into Impact, Advancing Women in Caribbean Tourism Workplaces, will help us to understand how to translate the research findings we've just heard into concrete actions that will benefit women, businesses, and destinations across the region. Vanessa brings both the strategic perspective of a regional leader and the practical experience of someone who has successfully implemented change initiatives throughout the Caribbean tourism sector. Please give a warm welcome to Vanessa Ledesma.
Buenos dias. All protocols having been established, I wish I had an opportunity to be with you there in person. But colleagues and partners, it's an honor to join this gathering that brings together purpose-driven professionals committed to advancing the role of women in Caribbean tourism. I thank the UNFPA and other industry stakeholders for the invitation and for its continued leadership in helping our industry confront and reimagine the structures that shape our workplaces. This forum is timely. Across the Caribbean, we are reflecting more deeply, not only on what we value in tourism, but on who we value. Our people are the soul of our industry, and equity is the key to its strength. The data from UNFPA's Women in Tourism survey is more than numbers. It's a call to action. It reveals both the progress and the persistent gaps that women experience across the sector, from access to opportunity, workplace well-being, and voice in decision-making. At CHTA, we believe that data must do more than inform. It must drive change. Through our People Development Initiative, we are aligning our work around core pillars that these insights reinforce: inclusive leadership, equitable advancement, safe and respectful workplaces, and a culture of support. Insights is only the starting point. Impact is the destination. As the regional voice for the Caribbean hospitality and tourism private sector, CHTA is committed to advancing practical, meaningful steps that create stronger and more inclusive workplaces for women. This includes supporting training, mentorship, and leadership pathways, promoting best practices in workplace culture and safety, championing cross-sector collaboration to elevate women's contributions at every level. Equity must be embedded, not added on. It must inform how we design our system, train our leaders, and shape the future of our workforce. One of the greatest sources of inspiration comes from our young professionals, especially young women across the region who are stepping forward with ideas, energy, passion, and leadership. Through our Young Leaders Forum and the work across our member destinations, we've seen firsthand what can happen when talent is nurtured, voices are heard, and mentorship is prioritized. These emerging professionals are not waiting to be invited into the future. They are already shaping it. If we are to build a resilient industry, we must ensure that the next generation sees tourism not as a fallback, but as a career of purpose, progress, and pride. That future doesn't take shape on its own. It requires intention, investment, and most importantly, shared ownership. Real transformation doesn't belong to one organization, one destination, or one conference. It belongs to all of us as employers, educators, policymakers, and advocates. CHTA is committed to being part of that collective movement. We will continue to use our platform, our partnerships, and our programs to champion meaningful inclusion across Caribbean tourism. Let me close with this. Behind every insight shared today is a woman with ideas, ambition, and the power to shape her workplace and her world. Let's honor her not just with recognition, but with action. Let's commit to building an industry where equity is standard, opportunity is real, and inclusion is lived every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanessa, for that inspiring, actionable keynote address. Your roadmap for turning insights into impact provides us with a clear framework for moving forward, and your call to action resonates with the urgency of the work that we're doing. Now we're going to dive deeper into the themes through a panel discussion that will bring together diverse voices from across the Caribbean tourism ecosystem. This conversation will give us the opportunity to hear from leaders who are already driving positive change in their organizations and communities. I'm delighted to introduce our panel discussion, Voices from the Industry, Perspectives from Tourism Leaders Driving Positive Change Across the Caribbean. First, let me introduce our panel moderator, Brian Frontin, the Senior Consultant for UNFPA. Brian is a seasoned strategic advisor with over 24 years of cross-sector leadership spanning financial services, government, private enterprise, and multilateral development. He has led tourism sector reform, strengthened institutional capacity, and delivered impactful solutions across complex policy and operational landscapes. He currently serves as a sector consultant to the UNFPA, leading engagement with the Caribbean's hotel and tourism industry and regional stakeholders to integrate gender-based violence prevention and sexual and reproductive health and rights into workplace frameworks. Let me also introduce our distinguished panelists. Brittany Brathwaite from the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. Brittany is currently the Chief People and Development Strategist with Montrose Holdings Limited and Chairperson of People Development Committee at the CHTA. Coupled with extensive experience as a regional labor policy advisor with the Caribbean Employers Confederation and other regional agencies on national and regional policy research and development, Brittany integrates her love of labor policy into riveting people strategy, which has resulted in phenomenal successes in driving change, curating sustainable cultures, and lend to the competitive advantage of companies. Tenisha Brown-Williams from the Inter-American Development Bank. Tenisha is a senior tourism specialist with the IDB based in Barbados, leading tourism strategy and projects across the Caribbean. With over 20 years of experience, she has worked with global organizations like the World Bank, UNESCO, the Foundation for Environmental Education, and the International Organization for Standardization. Passionate about talent development, she has lectured in hospitality and tourism at the University of the West Indies and other regional institutions. Stacy Cox from Women in Tourism Caribbean. Stacy is the founder of Women in Tourism Caribbean, a platform she launched in 2019 to celebrate and empower women in the tourism industry. With over 13,000 followers, the initiative shines a spotlight on female professionals across the Caribbean hospitality sector. Originally from the Bahamas and now a citizen of Turks and Caicos, Stacy brings over 25 years of experience in hospitality. In 2011, she was appointed CEO of the Turks and Caicos Hotel and Tourism Association, a role she still holds, advocating for sustainable tourism and representing the industry on key national and regional platforms. She's also a founding board member of the Destination Management Organization in the Turks and Caicos and was named Executive Director of the Year in 2018. This panel brings together perspectives from industry associations, development finance, and advocacy organizations, a combination that will give us a comprehensive view of the challenges and opportunities we face in advancing women in Caribbean tourism. Brian, I'll turn it over to you to guide this important conversation, and I invite you to sit on the panel.
Stacy. Stacy is there as well. Good morning, buenos dias, bienvenidos, damas y caballeros. Yes, and you could only speak that way coming from the cold winter of Buenos Aires 2 days ago. Very happy to be here with you in Barbados this morning. Oftentimes, the conversations that we're having on these themes, and they're difficult themes sometimes to discuss, but they live in the minds and hearts mainly of those affected by them and those that are committed to making the changes. And today I'm really happy to be having a conversation with 3 women who have been making these changes, speaking up, speaking out, and in their own respective ways, making a difference in addressing these issues. You've been introduced to Stacy, to Brittany, and to Tenisha. And my role is to really engage them in some conversations on these very important discussions. So an open question, and I'll start with you, Stacy, of course. We really value our online community that's on board this morning. Given your wealth of experience in the hotel and tourism industry, how have you seen the sector evolve in addressing the needs of women in the workforce, particularly around the areas of workforce safety, well-being, and empowerment?
Thank you so much, Brian, for that question, and I'm delighted to be in the room. It's definitely an opportunity to share with those who are in the room, and I see based on the camera, there's still a few good men that are sitting there. So I've seen the involvement for women in the workplace around gender-based violence evolve dramatically. I remember when there was a time where we only seen men in the room or at the table, and now we're seeing women not only at the table but influencing policies and really thriving in those spaces. And previously, we've seen women running the front desk, making beds and keeping everything afloat, but we weren't always seen or heard or sometimes even safe. Over the time, we've obviously pushed a barrier, and today we have been able to shift the workforce through safety and mental well-being, and even leadership in the pipelines. So it's certainly been talked about, and even since the advent of the Me Too movement, we've seen the Caribbean really shine a light on harassment and safety in the workplace. The Caribbean itself is we're very friendly people. the hugging when we're greeting and the hugging or holding hands while we're walking down the corridors is something that we're accustomed to. But when the light was shown on the Me Too movement, we've seen somewhat of a pivot, and I'm glad to see that the conversation is now happening in forums like this.
Thank you, Stacy. May I ask Brittany for your thoughts as well? Sure.
Okay, so good morning, everybody, again. I've seen, I think, moderate change. I think in the Caribbean, we've moved from having a posture of reactivity to having certainly a more proactive posture. We've seen legislative landscapes evolve as well. I mean, Barbados has been to the forefront of having discrimination legislation in place, preventing workplace discrimination. Separately, we have prevention of sexual harassment discrimination. I think the launch of the GBV regional survey is also, that workplace policy was an indication of us taking a proactive approach strategically across the region, and probably one of the largest ones that we've taken to date as well. Now, that does not mean that the journey does not need more, or we shouldn't continue. Certainly, when we look at safety from the perspective of safety, we see a change in the perspective of how persons handle harassment and the lodging of harassment through whatever mechanisms exist. Well-being has gone beyond just talking about physical well-being. And when we talk about well-being now in this room, it's different than if we had talked about well-being 15 years ago. We immediately think about psychological well-being. We immediately think about balancing the work-life and work-life balance for females and matrifocally led households. So I think, the larger, more macrofocal steps, that have been taken have helped to shape workplace dynamics. But I do think there's a lot more work to be done at the domestic level to connect those policies, to connect the legislative landscape with what our people feel and think. And I think the survey results we just saw says that to us.
Good morning, everyone, and happy to be here. I want to speak out of my experience as a hospitality and tourism professional. Very early in my career, when I was studying hospitality and tourism, the one consistent question I got was, are you studying to be a cook? Right? It was very, very consistent. And so where I sit now, I have seen that mindset shift away from just women being in these operational frontline roles. We do it very well, right? It's very natural. But there has been a shift towards recognition that we can lend our voices to strategy, to policy, to planning. In fact, when I would say, no, I'm not studying culinary management or hotel management, nobody got the concept of tourism management. I don't even think my parents understood. But I'm happy to see, as Minister would have said, many women in instrumental roles in tourism authorities and ministries of tourism, lending their voice to shaping an industry. Policy is not always the sexy side of tourism or even planning, but those diverse voices and the female voices lend to crafting the way forward. The other point I want to raise is how digital technology has empowered females. And Airbnb, Minister mentioned, Airbnb is one of those platforms. And again, speaking out of my experience in 2017, I experienced job loss in the sector. And it was a really rough time. Fortunately, we had some family assets that I was able to work with a mentor to turn that asset into a listing on Airbnb. And that provided a source of dignity to me during that very difficult time. It provided a source of connection still to the industry that I was very passionate about. And it just allowed me to use my skill, right? So we're seeing where digital platforms are empowering our voice. Women are taking care. I actually am part of the community in Trinidad and Tobago as the volunteer community leader. And when you hear the stories of women who are paying for their children's education as single parents out of visitors coming every single week to their one-room property, so they are in their apartment and they're renting out or subletting their room, and they're making an earning so that they can provide for their children. So certainly there's a lot more work to be done, but I've really seen a good progress towards supporting women in the industry over the last 2 decades.
Thank you, ladies. And of course, you've heard some quick takes on the data that we've actually embarked on gathering before this event to really pique interest. And of course, to our participants, we'll be sharing these reports with you shortly. I know it's a quick pass at it, and you'd like to dive deeper, but it will be with you in the very near future. But having listened and seen some of that data, what's a quick example of a barrier you can foresee that could challenge our Caribbean hotel and tourism sector in integrating these gender-based violence and women health issues in the operations? And if you can, briefly, what can be a way to overcome this barrier? Brittany, let me start with you.
I definitely, and I've experienced it because we launched our GBV regional policy in 2023 with the launch here. What I think the largest barrier is that we silo these policies and we say, okay, this is on a compliance checklist and this belongs to HR. It's not an HR specific or siloed policy. It has to be an integrated approach. So you have to ensure that you're integrating your understanding of violence and its impact on your employees from your onboarding, your orientation, all facets of training. And that's not to say like you have to have a large survey instrument every time and sharing the survey results. It just needs to be a part of the fabric of that makes up your working environment and the training and development tools. So your housekeeping manager needs to know how to have a conversation with the team member who has reproductive health issues. The security officer, and we actually faced this maybe 2 months ago, needs to know how to interact when somebody comes on property and because in our instance, a gentleman came on property and beat up his girlfriend. And it was her first day at work. She was awaiting my team member. Luckily, my team member had not yet arrived. And the security team member, through training that we'd executed, knew how to intervene, recognized that it was domestic in nature, and understood the protocols to execute. So when we're talking about interweaving these things into the fabric of the organization, it's imperative that they didn't need to call Brittany to understand what to do. They did not need to reach out to the GM. It was part of the fabric of how we live and breathe and help them to understand how to manage situations when they come up, and also how to be proactive about thinking and flagging these things. See something, say something. Yeah.
Stacy, let me let you come in as well. What are the a barrier you think we can address and see coming down the chute as this conversation continues?
Thank you, Brian. A lot of it is social issues that we're facing, some of the barriers, and the way that businesses conduct themselves on a day-to-day basis, because it's also a business responsibility. Brittany's analogy was pretty spot on, where the culture of her workplace knows exactly what to do in situations that have offensive situations towards women. Everyone pretty much sprung into action. But we really need to create policies within our work environment with teeth in them, supported not just by the HR professionals, but create a culture in these environments in order to protect women and the vulnerable in safety. And when businesses start to do this, a lot of times we find that when the private sector starts to do this, we find that government normally will follow. And these are the things that we really need to put to the forefront of protecting those in vulnerable positions.
Thanks, Stacy, and of course, Tenisha.
I just want to go to maybe a general root cause. I think in the Caribbean, we still treat gender-based violence and the sexual reproductive health issues as private matters. The employer thinks that it's a private issue that maybe they ought not to be part of, and the employee thinks that perhaps it's none of my employer's business. And that's the reality. So how do we address the reality to a point where the employee feels comfortable enough in this space that they will not be judged because there are stigmas around abuse. We've heard in the public domain, women choose your partners better. So when you're faced with that sort of thinking, why would I want to open up about it? Because of fear of judgment. And so I don't have anything else to add to what was already said, more than it's creating that culture of care. And I want to just pinpoint something that Patricia said. It's good for business. So apart from, I know we're in the sector, the hotel sector has opened up greatly to doing environmental audits, for example, and seeing the value of environmental change and good for your operations. But it's just good for business to create that culture of care and to take care of your employees.
And one thing I'd like to add, Brian, is that what we're seeing emerging in the Turks and Caicos is where businesses are creating safe spaces for their employees straight across the board. And you're seeing a lot of women take advantage of it. So when I say safe spaces, a lot of the HR departments are now engaging therapists as part of their teams to provide this safe space for people to go into, making it their business, but not their business, to protect and give vulnerable people a person where they can have an outlet for situations that may arise in their home or even in the workplace.
Thank you. Thank you for those insights. And I think it's an important theme that we can't look at this GBV in the workplace issue as isolated from the communities in which we are drawn from the homes and the neighborhoods. They're the locations where some of this behavior is normalized, finds its way into the workplace, and that's why the issue is a lot more complex than simply a private matter. You really have to target it as one that brings the whole of community or whole of a country's approach. And of course, we spoke about the efforts of Barbados and Antigua in making this a national issue that can be enforced at the private sector level. On that score, I'm going to get a little deeper into your respective areas. Brittany, for example, you sit at the intersection of executive leadership, not only within the industry, but at a regional level, at CHTA on the People Development Committee, but also HR development across the region. So how do you see the role of people leaders in these different organizations evolving, and how can they be more empowered to embed women's health and GBV reduction strategies in the workplace? And you said the point earlier, and we've known it in private sector at large, HR tends to be the default. When there's a problem, call HR. How can people development, and just the title itself is a good shift in the right direction, but the empowerment and also their evolution on the job description level?
So I think collaborative design around strategies is one thing, but implementation is where culture really shifts. And if you're going to implement collaborative policy, or you have collaborative strategic policy, you really have to ensure that leadership understands the value proposition intrinsically. So this is why today we have the head of our sales and marketing here. We have female leaders from across the industry. We have, our health and safety person here, because this is not an HR initiative. This is a collaborative approach, and the shift in our culture requires their knowledge as much as it does mine. I also think it is really imperative that we strengthen our ability around creating confidential, secure systems for grievance handling. And that, if nothing else, has been a huge shift or created a huge shift for us in our group, certainly. And we've moved post-2023 from having little to no submissions around grievances around GBV. And this is to say that we have more submissions is not a bad thing. I actually think it's a good thing. We have greater numbers now in 2025 of females and or minorities identifying to their leaders or through our HR departments where they are subjected to violence, where they are subjected to harassment. The fact that people feel and they can trust the system works is a fantastic thing. And I say this to everybody in this room. Because you're not hearing about harassment, that does not mean it's not happening. Typically, if you're not hearing anything about it, it means that the system may not be trusted. So creating a system where the persons who are impacted the most feel that they can trust that system and engage with that system and verify. Because I mean, even though we won't share, people share. And victims will share their experience with the system, which is why I say, and I think, our experience with having greater numbers now and greater resolutions now has certainly resulted in success, at least by my perspective. I'd also like to add, and I know you're not on time, but I really think it's critical for organizations to be a lot more data and insight driven. You know, we think we know what our people want. Let our people tell us what we want. And as much, I think if we learn anything from today's survey is that we need to launch our own surveys in these areas in our discrete domestic environments. You need to create a baseline. This is a great regional baseline. Marketing has great tools to determine how they sell, but what about the people that you're leading every day? When you go back and you share these statistics, this is not necessarily a representation of them. So let this be a jolt to create a baseline of your own and then launch activities and initiatives that are customized for your environment.
Thank you, Brittany. I think two key takeaways from your insights. One, we noted in the U.S. market sentiment study that women are trusting the reviews of other women even above destination websites. That's very interesting because on the workforce level, becoming employers of choice or employers that workers would avoid is also by the word of mouth, because women are listening to other women's challenges in all spectrums, be it at the worker end, the demand side. And I think to your point also on letting the market or the workers lead the change, it's the same point we've seen with this demand-centered approach. Instead of the Caribbean positioning what we would like to be, let's listen in to what our travelers, our number one source market are saying they would like to see more of in the Caribbean. Always a better solution when you're meeting your guests where they would like you to be. Tenisha, if I might just shift over to the IDB perspective and sort of join this question on how IDB has been positioning gender equity and workplace safety in support of tourism projects within LATAM or the Caribbean, and any successful examples you can share with us as well.
Sure, thanks, Brian. I want to just start with our new IDB country strategy for Barbados. There are 3 pillars. I see my country rep smiling. So there are 3 pillars on economic revitalization, social resilience, and of course, climate resilience. And I'm happy to say that gender and diversity issues are run throughout all of the pillars, and for other underrepresented groups, so not just women, but those with disabilities and so forth. So I'm saying that to say that gender and diversity issues are not a side note for the IDB. It is actually part of the design, the implementation, and how we evaluate the impact of projects and interventions. We also have a gender and diversity framework, sector framework, that guides the work of the IDB as well as a gender action plan. So that allows us to ask questions such as, how are the projects benefiting females? Are we reducing risk through these projects or increasing it? Are we widening the gender gaps or are we closing it? And so those types of questions allow us to design projects that will give greater opportunity and empowerment for those females that are involved. So I want to give an example, very quick example, which is out of Belize. We now have a sustainable and inclusive Belize loan, which is focused on the agriculture and tourism sector. And what was found in the pre-study of the loans were very glaring gender gaps, including empowerment issues, women working outside of the homes in Belize. And so the loan itself, which while it's focused on two main sectors of Belize, is also focused on how do we close those gaps in terms of women participating via MSMEs in those two sectors. And for example, one indicator speaks to how women are involved beyond just the metric of employment. So that's the other thing. When we measure gender inclusion, it goes past how the number of females we have in our organizations. It goes to decision-making capacities, it goes to leadership roles, it goes to those types of influential spaces that they're in. And so this loan is particularly designed to unpack those issues, to allow women to have a greater capacity to deliver their services, their goods, and so forth within those two sectors. So just a quick example.
Thanks, Tenisha. And Stacy, I know you've worked previously within hotel management, so you really have a good combination of experience both at the industry side, at the association level, but also operations. So casting your mind back and maybe even looking today at some of the discussions we've been having, how can tourism businesses effectively address the dynamics of guests and employees to help in reducing GBV risk and increase senses of safety and mutual respect? Because it's such an interesting dynamic that we found more reporting between the guest and employee experience. And it begs the question, when you're inviting visitors to the Caribbean destination, you're also inviting their value systems. You're inviting their ways of viewing and interpreting what a Caribbean vacation should and shouldn't be. And many times our workforce are told the guest is right, and we have to accept this to make their experience pleasant. But to what extent is the dynamics between employees and guests important, and how can we create systems to help reduce these very, very present risk of GBV?
I think that, and you've taken me all the way back, Ryan, to those days, but I believe that there's opportunities now, just as I had mentioned before, to first of all, creating those safe spaces, ensuring that there is someone on your team that people can go to speak about situations. And I think we need to adopt what the airline does. The airline simply says that the steward or the stewardess is here for your safety, not your waitress or anything else, and anyone found harassing them will be fined. So we, as hoteliers, or tourism professionals, we need to adopt that same policy. The staff is here to service you, and put that in your language when, on the guest registration card, on your booking site, that they're really here to serve you, and any abuse of those staff will not be tolerated. And we need to somewhat put into place a zero tolerance for any type of sexual harassment or anything that will impact the vulnerables. The airline has successfully done it, and they've been doing it for years now, and there's been no pushback on it. I'm not sure why we as accommodation providers or the on-the-ground tourism professionals have not yet implemented something as simple as that. And it's not going, you're not going to paint the entire room at one time. It's just baby steps in getting there and changing the narrative. It's these subliminal messages that helps our staff to feel safe, to help the guests to know that there's zero tolerance for this whole concept that the guest is always right. But again, it's baby steps that I believe that we can take.
Thanks, Stacy. And interestingly, if you recall that quick data insight by Trove on ethical tourism practices, not only are women more likely to have trust in a property that has clear guidelines and notices of prevention or at least non-tolerance of this kind of harassment, they're willing to pay more for properties that promote this type of activity. So there's a business case that is being made, and of course we'll dive deeper into this in the coming weeks and months, but clearly doing the right thing in this way not only protects the staff, but it creates a revenue and an increased opportunity to meet those travelers' demands and expectations. And we're winding down. Tenisha, I have one more for you, and then we'll have a common question for all of our ladies. Tenisha, and it's a very controversial one. In advancing the awareness and training in reducing GBV in tourism workplaces, do you see any opportunities to simultaneously address the ever-increasing risk of human trafficking and related security matters in this industry?
Thanks, Brian. So the issue of human trafficking and the tourism sector as an enabler is quite a sensitive topic. And I think there's a lot more room for us across the Caribbean to gently dive into the topic with research first to understand the state of play. But the opportunities and the sort of capacity that's built through GBV training can be used to spot victims of trafficking. It's important, as we all know, hotels, airports, attractions have high volumes of movement of persons. And if your staff is sensitive to those matters, as I know in some Caribbean countries, there has been training around the topic with hoteliers, with hotel staff, and they are actually able to tell you, I mean, we would not see it, but they are now able to tell you that this person was in some trouble, and these are the signs, right? So the work has started, but certainly there is capacity, there is room for us to use that training and integrate it into our HR programs and so forth, use the relevant human trafficking agencies that are resident in most of our Caribbean countries to provide that overall sensitivity so that it's not just creating that safe environment, as we've heard, for employees, but it is for our guests and it is for our communities. And I'll leave it right there.
Thank you, Tenisha. And let me pose one final question to all three of our amazing panelists who've shared some really great insights on practice and implementation of these solutions at very, very different perspectives, whether at the development agency level, at the hotelier level, and of course, Stacy, at a community level and association level within Turks and Caicos. Thank you again for your insights. So, final question for all three. If you had to leave this room of course, hoteliers, tourism operators, leaders, and policymakers with one key action they should take when returning to their organizations tomorrow, what would it be? I'll start with Tenisha, and then Brittany, and then wrap up with you, Stacy. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. My advice is to commit to one change, because I consider myself a micro-entrepreneur in the hospitality space. There's so many moving parts for running an operation. On any given day, 10 maintenance issues might pop up and you have to deal with all of them. So I know that we're sitting in this room and we're talking about this topic, but the reality is, especially for smaller properties that have 5 employees or at most 10, Dealing with multiple complex issues could be a lot. You just don't have the time and you just don't have the resources. So my advice is to choose one thing within this topic that even if it's maybe reaching out to a social agency that could provide information so that you have that information on hand to refer to your employees to. That one thing, what is that? And that's my advice.
I'd say mine would have to be to formalize transparent, and I think a lot of us have existing pathways for empowerment for females or leadership, but to formalize transparent pathways. So when we look at our matriculation rates from the University of the West Indies, we have females representing more than 75% of those matriculation rates. Yet, and while we have a room full of female leaders today, when we look at leadership positions across the Caribbean, we still have more males representing, right? So those two statistics sit on opposite sides of each other. And it tells us, and what young leaders are saying is that we don't know exactly where these pathways for development are. So if we can walk out of here and develop one transparent way that females can engage in a pathway in your organization, whether it's to sell their business internally, whether it is to have a promotion opportunity, I think that would be my ask.
Thank you so much, Brian. My thoughts are simple. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for permission. Just start the conversation now. And I'm grateful that we have started in the room of individuals with the people who are in the room today. And whether it's starting with conversation or starting with just simple things like your handbook or adopting what the airline has done. We just need to start. And I think the time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you to all of our panelists. That was such a rich and insightful discussion. I'm pleased to introduce Titian-Rose Whittle, the GBV coordinator for the UNFPA, who will be presenting the UNFPA's Knowledge Hub on practical resources, tools, and technical assistance for ending GBV in private sector workplaces. Titian-Rose has been instrumental in developing and implementing the UNFPA's gender-based violence prevention initiatives across the Caribbean. Her work focuses on creating evidence-based solutions that address the real challenges women face in the workplace. Please welcome Titian-Rose Whittle.
Hello, everyone. I feel so inspired for that panel discussion. My goodness. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so we have our work cut out for us. And UNFPA is really happy to be here with the tourism sector because we see you as a critical partner in reducing gender-based violence in the workplace. This is moving a bit. Okay, so great. So the benefits of implementing a GBV workplace policy, quite evident, but I just wanted to recap a few for you. In the tourism sector, it is critical that employees understand that they have a legal and ethical responsibility to create a workplace that is safe for not only the staff, but also the persons, but also visitors to the locations. Yes? Are you all hearing me clearly? Beautiful. And really, it's about going beyond the policy. It's really about building a positive workplace culture and also just ensuring the safety and the security of the person that we serve. And I want to stop on the point of safety. When we look around the room today, it's filled with persons in higher level positions, but within the tourism sector, let us not forget the persons who interact on a daily basis with the consumers. They face a lot of harassment, and they may not be in positions of power or they may not feel empowered to report. In my work as a gender-based violence and emergency coordinator, no problem. It's coming to the end of it, so it's, there. And I will not touch it. Okay, so I wanted to stop on the point of safety and protection, and I wanted to really call you in to think about the vulnerable persons who work amongst us. When we look at the reporting on gender-based violence, it is often underreported. Let us imagine a situation where you work with someone who may not feel that they are in a position to safeguard their space. If they make a report, they fear that they may lose their job. Do you think they will actually come forward and report? No? I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I love my country. But we do have a lot of work to do when it comes to creating safe reporting mechanisms. And Brittany spoke about that earlier. She said that not only is a policy necessary, we must go beyond the policy. We must sensitize the persons in the workspace. They must understand the need for a survivor-centered approach, and they must also understand how do we deal with these instances of gender-based violence. When we think about the vulnerable populations, if we have a GBV workplace policy that comes with the training, comes with the sensitization of the staff, then hopefully that employee will come forward, yes? Hopefully the tourist who's visiting will find herself able to come and say, listen, I've recognized that there have been posters, I can make a report, this has happened, and their needs can be met, okay? So safety and security, but also the vulnerability. I want to make another point under vulnerability. We also do work under gender-based violence in emergency situations, and within this sector, you may be called to offer your space as a shelter as well. Yes, we've had the hurricane barrel response last year, and we do recognize in an emergency situation, gender-based violence increases. If we have a workplace policy that also has parameters for responding for GBV in an emergency, if that does arise, the persons have already been trained, they understand that in an emergency, chaos, confusion, tempers may run high. Also, there's a lot of shame and guilt. How do we respond to that? Let's build that into the policy, okay? Okay, great. So once we also have a GBV workplace policy in place, we can also support reduced absenteeism and increase the well-being of the persons. We recognize that gender-based violence has deep implications on a psychological level. It can also, of course, on the physical level, cause injuries. Someone who is confronting gender-based violence in their daily life may not be in a position to come to work if they may have a broken wrist, a broken arm, or they may have a physical, a black eye. Let's be very real, colleagues, yes? If we have a space where there's a policy that addresses that, we hope, even within the policy, it's built in. How do we respond to the needs of a survivor right now in our organization? Is it that we're going to reduce their payment? No. We may perhaps be given an opportunity to say this person is a survivor of GBV. Within our policy, we provide a space where they can access services and also get the support that they need without having to reduce that from their salary. So those are things that we can build into our policy as well. It will reduce absenteeism, and it will of course, offer space so that persons can come forward and get support. Yes, I can move on. And UNFPA, we see ourselves in really a catalytic role. What is important for us is to develop evidence-based policy. So we, as Jenny spoke earlier, we have been working to really push forward and advocate for the inclusion of GBV workplace policies. We do have a model workplace policy that can be shared, that can be adapted to your context. So we've done that, and we are here to support you. Secondly, as a convener across public and the private sectors, some of the work that we do, of course, it's beyond Barbados. It's the wider Caribbean, the English and the Dutch-speaking Caribbean, and we work with the private and the public sector. So to work on, for example, in Guyana, when we are addressing GBV in the workplace, we have done work with the government to develop reporting mechanisms around the prevention of sexual exploitation and abuse. And we have trained over 100 service providers in PSCA. We're also doing the same in Trinidad and Tobago because it's a critical issue for us. The UN has a zero tolerance policy around SEA and it's not going to be tolerated. So we are doing work around that. And we find ourselves in a position to bring the both worlds together. Yes? We also have the expertise in capacity building. So I mentioned PSCA, but I also spoke to you about gender-based violence in emergencies. Also work around the survivor-centered approach. And guys, that's one thing I will always flag to you. Everything that we do must be grounded in the survivor-centered approach when we're responding to the needs of those persons in need. Okay? We can also do work around just how do you support persons through the referral process. That is a training that we are happy to offer. We've also worked with SEDEMA on the regional level in that emergency response as well. And also, when we, around the second week of July, we shall also launch the Knowledge Hub, and we will have clear information for you around the technical documents that are available. So this meeting today, evidence-based information around GBV in the workplace. So you listened to the discussions, and this is something that I think for us is an absolute milestone. It will inform our policies moving forward and provide further insight into our response. So UNFPA, of course, is happy to really be spearheading this opportunity. We will also share with you the model GBV workplace policy, which will be in UNFPA's Knowledge Hub. In that hub, you will find as well, so the workplace policy, the Pulse on Progress Survey, U.S. Market Sentiment Study, the UN Tourism, Gender Equality and Tourism Training Module, the Gender-Based Violence in Emergencies Module, Prevention of Sexual Exploitation and Abuse, as well as case studies on GBV workplace policy implementation. And UNFPA stands at the ready to support you. We understand it is a mammoth task, but we are here to do further work, further training, capacity building sessions, and just working with you to ensure that we can create safer workplace environments. So thank you very much. Happy to last cycle.
Thanks so much, Titian-Rose, for that comprehensive overview. So I'm mindful of the time, but we're going to jump right into our Q&A session. And so what I would like to be able to do is to invite those of you in the room who wish to have any questions to our panelists, to any of our speakers, to any of the persons who are online. And then for those persons who are joining us virtually, if you wish to post any questions in the chat, we will have our technical team read those questions so that we can have some meaningful discussion and dialogue. So I will ask for any of the persons who are in the room, if you'd like to raise your hand, if there are any questions you'd like to post, we can get started with our Q&A. Who will be the first? Do we have any questions online? None is yet? Are we going to all have discussions during lunch? If you want to take an executive decision to forego the questions and have them post after the event, we can do that. Okay. So I think we will then just skip to the last part of the program. To bring the forum to a close, I'm pleased to welcome Jane Gibbons, Liaison Officer at the UNFPA, who will share closing remarks titled, Moving Forward Together, a Call to Action and Networking. Dejane has been instrumental in developing partnerships between the UNFPA and private sector organizations throughout the Caribbean. Her work focuses on creating sustainable collaborations that drive real change. Throughout today's forum, we've heard about research findings, best practices, new resources. Now, Dejane will help us think about how we can ensure that that momentum generated today continues to build and that the partnerships formed here can lead to concrete action throughout the Caribbean tourism industry. Her closing remarks will focus on the practical next steps we can all take to move forward together in creating workplaces where women can thrive and contribute their full potential to the Caribbean tourism industry. Please welcome Dejane Gibbons for the closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, partners, colleagues, friends in the room and online. My colleague Titian-Rose spoke about how inspiring the panel was. I want to add the entire session was very inspiring. It was a moment for me to step away from my desk and learn. I knew all of this activity was happening for the last couple of months, but seeing it on paper, seeing it on the screen, hearing the voices, I am too inspired to take this work forward. We had the Pulse Progress Survey, the US Market Sentiment Survey. We saw the results. What are the next steps? The term action came up quite a bit in the discussions today. What are the actions that we can all take based on our mandates? We have development partners in the room, we have UN in the room, tourism leadership in the room, and online. Where do we go next? As UNFPA, we want to urge each hotelier, policymaker, advocate, ally, friend to adopt and adapt the GBV workplace policy and other gender-responsive practices within your organization. We shared some tools today. They'll be forthcoming. Also, you'll be able to delve deeper. How do you adapt these tools to your specific circumstances? We call on you to amplify the voices of women in tourism, ensuring that their experiences inform policies and business strategies. We call on you to leverage the Knowledge Hub to access the tools, share best practices, and track progress. Collaborate boldly. This work requires bold people, so collaborate boldly to embed gender equality into the DNA of Caribbean tourism. Today, let us spark change. Let us hold each other accountable. Celebrate the milestones. They're not only challenges, but they're milestones as well. And continue this dialogue, not just over the lunch for those of you who are in the room, but beyond. And UNFPA will continue to be a partner with you in this journey. Thank you for your passion, your partnership, and your presence. And let's keep the momentum alive to ensure ripple effects of our collaboration. So allow me to thank each and every one of you, from our hostess, our Honorable Minister again, each person who collaborated on the agenda. I also want to recognize the UNFPA team that has been sitting in the back, our colleagues, quite a few hands, yes. Isabel, Kim, our technical team. Allow me to recognize each and every hand that went towards making today what it is. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day, and safe travels to those of you who will be traveling. Thank you.
Thank you, Dejane, for your closing words, and, as we said, the call to action. So as we conclude today's regional forum, The Multiplier Effect, Women Shaping the Future of Caribbean Tourism, I want to echo Jane's sentiments in thanking each and every one of you for your participation, your engagement, and your commitment to this important work. To our speakers, thank you for sharing your expertise, your research, and your insights. To our panelists, thank you for your candid perspectives and practical recommendations. Both the persons in person, online, thank you so very much for your commitment to taking action. The research we've heard today shows us both the challenges we face and the opportunities before us. The stories that we shared have proved that positive change is possible, and the resources that will be launched will provide us for the tools needed to move forward. The multiplier effect starts with each of us. Let's make sure that the impact of today's forum multiplies throughout our region, creating positive change for women, for businesses, and for the Caribbean tourism industry as a whole. So thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your day. So everyone who's here, we can have lunch now. Thank you for your patience.